Hi, my name is Louise Caplan, and I'll be looking at hunters' willingness to change their hunting practices in response to risk of zoonotic disease. And I was working on this project over the summer with Dr. Kyle Plotsky and Dr. David Hall. So in this project, we're looking at zoonotic diseases in Wood Buffalo National Park, which is in the northeast side of Alberta and goes into the Northwest Territories. So this has many, up to 3,000 bison, and some of the herds do have brucellosis and bovine tuberculosis. So why are we worried about the zoonotic disease reservoir? So this is worrying as we're worried about bison species recovery. Also, we want to protect the cattle industry. As we can see in the map, many cattle herds are in very close proximity to some of the infected bison herds. Also, other wildlife are at risk, and cultural, spiritual, and food sustainability issues are important for the Indigenous communities in the surrounding area. So we can see that many issues are important here at play, but we're focusing on hunters today. So our research question here is, are hunters willing to change their hunting practices in response to the awareness of zoonotic diseases? And by willingness to change, we mean how far an animal infected with bovine tuberculosis or brucellosis has to be before they decide to change their hunting practices. So the purpose is to build a predictive model, and here are some of our anticipated significant predictor categories. So when looking at our background, we decided to focus on hunters as they have a very large economic and conservation significance. And this is partly due to the North American wildlife conservation model, which really holds wildlife in the public trust and gives everyone an equal hunting opportunity. So the questionnaire was sent out by Alberta Environment and Parks, and the sample frame was all the licensed hunters in Alberta. And it really was to explore Alberta's hunters' opinions on the health of wood bison in Wood Buffalo National Park and how to manage some of these zoonotic diseases too. So our data set was cleaned and some variables were recoded, and we used a multivariable linear regression. So these are some of our candidate variables for our regression. We have our dependent variable here at the top, and then we had to look at demographics, hunting habits, perception of risk of zoonotic diseases, and knowledge of zoonotic diseases. So here are some of our results. So we can see that our dependent variable, we have a right tail here. So we did have to do a natural log, a transformation, took the natural log of this variable to be able to use it in our regression. For age, we can see that we have an even distribution here. Annual household income seems pretty high for this sample. Our sample population seems pretty educated. However, less than a quarter of the respondents had what we considered a high level of knowledge about the zoonotic diseases, which is also interesting. So these are the three variations of our model. We can see that in the dark red, we have significance at alpha 0.05, and in the light red, we have significance at alpha 0.1. So we can see that model 3 seems to be the best fit. However, we were kind of focusing on the variables a little bit more. So some variables seem to be significant through all the models, such as knowledge of brucellosis appearance and also annual household income. So it's kind of surprising to look at some variables such as like years hunting and seeing that that may have not been as significant. So we saw that as annual household income increases, the willingness to change actually decreases. With a higher belief that bovine tuberculosis threatens hunting opportunities, the willingness to change decreases. So knowledge seems to be a significant predictor. However, if we go back to our results and see, the knowledge was actually pretty low. So it was interesting to see that correlation. Some other studies see that the willingness to continue hunting is actually strongly affected by the perceived risk of diseases such as chronic wasting disease. And for our last variable here, the knowledge of zoonotic disease, we saw as a knowledge kind of a brucellosis went up, the willingness to change went up. However, when the knowledge of bovine tuberculosis went up, the willingness to change went down, which was interesting. So in conclusion, this could really influence future policy and could help with communication and education in communities between hunters and the communities. And we can really use hunting to limit the spread of these zoonotic diseases outside the park. So we know that hunters can really play a very important role. We're just trying to find exactly what role that would be. So thank you for listening today. These are some of the references I used, and I'd like to also make some acknowledgement to all the parties mentioned on this page.